So this week's version of the Yamhill Leadership Roundtable, we've got former council president, but Councillor Kelly Menke from the city of McMinnville. I'm Casey Kula, Yamhill County Commissioner. We have Mayor Scott Hill from the city of McMinnville, also known as every once in a while a tie-breaking vote, Mayor Hill. We have Avisha Stone from SEDCOR, which is our economic development partner, and we have Mayor Linda Watkins from the city of Carlton. And Mayor Watkins, what's happening today in Carlton that you wanted to share?
Oh, goodness. Well, let's see. First of all, I would like to announce that we're going to be voting on our new city manager's contract this evening, and hopefully then we'll be getting ready to work with getting her in here. She is, by the way, bringing her partner with her. Her partner is a male. We want to make that point clear to people who seem to be confused by that. Other than that, right now we just put a stop work on our new subdivision that was going in because they had a little, not confusion, but a little bit of they weren't paying attention to the grading on the what was on the plan and what they were producing, and the grade is off about. It's supposed to go from north to south down 3 feet. Instead, it was going from north to south up about 2 feet, which caused a whole bunch of flooding for a whole bunch of people that border on the property. So we've been spending, I think I've spent most of the month on that, trying to get that straightened out. And they're back in. It's difficult for, I think, citizens to navigate land use planning and particularly construction, and it's one of the most difficult things for them and one thing they need to know. And we finally have gotten it to the point where the developer he's having to stop work and resurvey the property and make sure they've got it right. So that was a tough one for a lot of reasons. Other than that, everything's just quiet and boring here like always.
When do you anticipate your new city manager to come into town?
We're hoping sooner rather than later. Obviously, she will be here for our goal setting, which is February 27th. She'll come up for that. She's been looking at houses, but just waiting to get stuff done. Her contract with Yachats had required a 60 days notice, and so we're waiting to see if she can get out of that a little bit earlier, and the sooner she can get here, you know, the happier our staff will be. Our interim city manager has been doing just an amazing job, but she wants to get back to her finances.
Well, can I put my Mac Water and Light hat on and ask you a question, Mayor?
Sure.
You're going to have a presentation by John Dietz this evening on a little bit of the history and the story of Mac Water and Light, and the looking at becoming more of a regional partner in times coming down the road. Can you update us as to what's going to be happening at, I think it's your pre-city council meeting, maybe your work session?
I know that he's going to be doing the presentation then, and it's more particularly with fundamentally brand new council, and I'm somewhat new to the water thing. I actually was doing the city representation when Kathy George started the initial roundtable discussions about that. So I'm somewhat familiar with what's going on there. So I think what they're going to be doing is kind of explaining what the Regional Water Commission is going to be about and why we're looking at it. The other part, of course, for us is that when we start dredging our reservoir this summer, is that we're going to be buying water from Mac Water and Light for probably about 4 months, at least 4 months while they're doing the dredging. So this gives folks a chance to understand a little bit more about why we haven't been able to just, a lot of folks in Carlton are kind of like, well, why can't we just plug into Mac and the water will be cheaper and it'll be better? And we're kind of going, yeah, it's not quite that simple. Yeah. So we're trying to educate a little bit more outreach to the community and let them know what's going on and why and how.
Yeah, I'll tell you, for those that are watching and want to get a good facts behind the story on Mac Water and Light, you know, we're holding about 3.2 billion gallons of water up in the reservoirs, and we have rights of being able to take out over 1 million gallons per day out of the Willamette. We've not perfected those yet, but we have purchased the rights to do that. So we're going to have plentiful waters, and so we're looking at, as we perfect our rights out of the Willamette River, we're looking at, that's a heavy cost for us to develop the kind of intake out of the Willamette River down by the airport, and then filtering it and piping it. So some of those discussions will be talked about from a kind of a regional water possible source in the future. So I whet your appetite. Yeah. Go to Carlton's city council meeting tonight to get the story.
Yeah, if you go to our website, the link is on there for the Zoom meeting, so you can check in and see what's going on. One thing I will say, we moved over here from Idaho about 20 years ago, and we weren't personally involved, but my husband was reporting on the Snake River Basin adjudication that they were doing over there. I bring that up because when I was going to those initial roundtable meetings, we had one of the people in there from, I think it was either Bureau Rec, who was commenting about the fact that the Willamette River is heavily overcommitted compared to what they actually have in there. And he was saying that one of these days we're going to have to do an adjudication on the Willamette River, and he was just dreading it. I just want to remind people of that. It took. Oh,
yeah, and you buy your rights your rights are priority by the years that you buy them, and we've bought the rights back in 1930s and the 1950s. So we have a pretty high purchase, or what we've purchased is pretty high on the priority list. And so we feel like we're in really good shape. We've had to purchase those. We bought all of our rights from International Paper Company that was down on the Willamette in McMinnville. Yeah. And those were very senior rights. But you're absolutely right. You've got to be awfully careful because certain times of the year, there's a true overcommitment.
Yeah. The adjudication over in Idaho took 30 years, and that was moving at lightning speed. There are adjudications going on around the country that have been going on for 100 years. So just be aware.
Yep.
And it's actively in process right now. You know, the Army Corps of Engineers, and Abhisha probably knows all about this, but Army Corps is trying to figure out how much water of their available water can be released to purchasers and how much needs to stay in the river for in-stream uses, specifically for salmon.
Yeah, and we know that there has been a reassessment of usage for potential reallocation.
Yeah.
So stay tuned on that one. We will see you.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll see you all this evening.
All right, thank you very much. And I want to welcome as well Remy Drabkin, Council President for the City of McMinnville, and Joya Goodrum from the McMinnville Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to both of you. This is very McMinnville-centric, but fortunately McMinnville is kind of in the geographic center, so the city or the county will not tip while we're on this call, which is really nice to know. I'm just, I'm not a geologist, but I know this. But with that, I'd love to hear from Mayor Hill. What would you like to share with people today?
Well, thank you, Casey. And I just want to know that all three wards are represented on this call, Ward 1, 2, and 3. So, hey, we're very centric in our discussions today. I just wanted to go over a couple of pieces. Again, Mayor, thank you for allowing me to kind of share what Water and Light is doing. And again, we've got some really good things happening from that perspective. Let me just update people. Outside of COVID, you know, for those that really want to be following, the Oregon Health Agency is putting out really good material right now as to when the vaccines are going to be opening up. I know that as a over 65-year-old, February 28th is a magic date. So you can go out and look and see kind of what I'm talking about. Those over 70, I think, are coming up next week. I may be taking some of Casey's thunder a little bit. But again, there's just some really good things from those perspectives. As I look at McMinnville, last week we had an opportunity to meet with the Oregon International Air Show, and we are moving forward in the planning of a 2021 air show. It may be what they call a drive-in air show, which means you stay in your car. And so if you have sunroofs, it works really well. If you have backup pickups, it works really well. We don't know if indeed we go that direction, how many will be able to participate, but we know that cars will not be parked over at Evergreen, so it's going to be on the airport property. We have the Air Force Thunderbirds coming in and met with the senior pilot and the announcer from his plane and his navigator, and just had a great meeting and excited what the show is going to possibly look like for this year. More specifics are going to be developed probably by the middle of March, but we know there will be a show, and shows have happened all across the United States in this drive-up fashion. And so no vendors, no displays. It will be very much watered down, but the planes will be up and going. We also know that at Hillsborough, although they will have an air show, but it's going to be with the antique acrobatic types of flying, no jets. And so it's looking like McMinnville is going to be the benefactor of when the jets come, it will be here. And so that's good news from that perspective. We've got a lot of good things on the front of conversations that are happening right now with our U.S. governmental officials as it deals with housing. And I'm going to leave that up to some of my two specialists, Remy and Kelly, that have been talking about that. Just had an opportunity to meet with YCAP this afternoon or this morning, and I'll leave that up to Kelly. Some good things happening from that perspective with the hotel program and the Project Turnkey. A lot of dollars are up for debate right now, so some real critical times as we're looking at sources to help our homeless and affordable housing types of things from that perspective. This week, I will be meeting with the Mid-Willamette Valley Transportation Advisory Committee, and I didn't see anything on the agenda that was per se other than we are looking at from McDougal Corner all the way down to coming into McMinnville, Highway 99 being repaved. And so ODOT is getting prepared for that. I know at the corner of Lafayette Avenue and 99, we're doing some widening of water lines while the road's out. Mac Water and Light's going to be doing those types of things. This last month, we are doing an intergovernmental contract, both with Mac Water and Light in the city of McMinnville, of the 3-mile lane bridge and the utilities that will be incorporated into that bridge. No longer are we going to be going over or under the muddy Yamhill River there, and it will be attached to the bridge. We've seen preliminarily that they're starting to clear cut some of the trees down in the church's property on the west side. Know that there will be a 2-lane bridge that will temporarily be built, and then the existing 3-mile lane bridge will be torn down completely. There will be significantly more room on the new bridge. There will be 2 lanes. There will be bike paths on both sides and wider sidewalks. So when that's all said and done, that's a 4-year project. We've not gone out to bidding on that yet, but they're just getting the contracting, and the city and Mac Water and Light for our portion, we're committing to the cost on that. So I think I'll just leave it there because we've got a lot of good representation from McMinnville. But again, any questions, feel free to give a call to any 3 of us that are on the council, and any member of the council. We're excited to have communication and dialogue with our citizens.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Before we go on to other councilors, though, are there questions for the mayor? All right, thanks for that great update. Oh, sorry, Mayor Watkins has a question for you.
Yeah, this is actually, it doesn't have anything to do with what you've been talking about, Mayor Hill. But I ran across an article from a year ago about councilors consider new session format, which was a conversation about having every week on Monday having a work session meeting. I was wondering if you had followed through with that and how it's working for you, if you've been.
Yeah, we're not doing it on a weekly basis, but what we've done since COVID, and we're not able to meet, we used to have kind of a pre-council meeting where we'd have a meal and we'd bring in our department heads, and we could get to know them and have a little more unity and understanding. But with COVID, we're not able to do that. So what we've done is we've had our work sessions for an hour before our council meeting on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday night. And then on the 3rd Wednesday night, we have a longer work session. So those can go up to 3 hours. And then the others are 1 hour. So we're picking up a good, it can be up to 5 hours worth of additional work sessions. We're finding that to be very helpful on the work sessions because we're not limited by having a lot of items on the agenda. It can really push us deeply in discussion. It was very helpful during the UGB. We used those sessions a lot for UGB. We bring our partners in sometimes to bring us up to speed. And so again, it helps the speed of our council meeting to stay with policy and procedure. And then information comes in at those other formats. And so I think, it's a little more of a commitment of time, but I think we've had some great success with that, Mayor.
Worked out well. Okay, thank you. Thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions for the mayor? All right, then I'm going to go to Councilor Drabkin, Council President. And it sounds like there's all kinds of YCAP related things, but we also have the YCAP board member here. So.
And Remy, you might update them on DEI too, because I think as of last night, we can't tell about discussions, but what's transpired there.
I'll yield to Remy. What's that?
She yields.
Woman yields.
She yields the balance of her time to the councilor from McMinnville.
No, not the balance of my time. Just I yield to her at this. And I will, of course, not try to touch upon any sort of YCAP update. Although I'm so excited about the.
Well, we have a meeting right after this one, so.
I can't wait to hear more. Mr. Mayor, per your suggestion, the city of McMinnville is forming a DEI advisory committee. This was laid out in our strategic plan that we created a couple of years ago. And we had slowly begun work on the different initiatives that fall under that part of our strategic plan, which talks about creating an inclusive culture in the city of McMinnville. So this is one of the things, so some of the work that's coming out of that. The mayor and I and our director of human resources, Kylie Bayer, have been interviewing people over the last number of weeks. We had a record number of applications for this committee. We had 37 applicants, which is the most applications we've ever had for any committee. That in and of itself was wonderful. We decided to offer interviews to everyone, wanting to start off on the right foot of through having an equitable approach and understanding that paper applications will give us only one perspective on potential committee members. We made a large number of hours and days available in hopes that people would, that the interview process itself wouldn't hinder any applicants. We ended up interviewing, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you remember how many, it was not all 37 people scheduled interviews.
I think it was 24, was it?
Sounds about right.
I've got it right here. I'll keep talking and I'll tell you.
Okay. So we just finished that process. We have we had a very difficult time narrowing it down, but we are, there's 7 positions on the committee. So we have 7 people we're recommending. We also have 2 alternates that our committee pool, the potential pool was just incredible. And additionally, a youth representative, and we have a youth representative alternate. So that recommendation will go to council on February 9th for appointment, and then we'll form that committee and get to work soon thereafter. We expect it to be a committee that has a fairly heavy lift as we use it as a filter for policy on its way to the council, in addition to its own initiatives for the city of McMinnville. Mr. Mayor, did you want to say how many?
20 we ended up interviewing.
20 great people. On housing, we had a really good, Councilor Mankey and I had a really great meeting with representatives from Wyden and Merkley's office, understanding some of the challenges that McMinnville faces when it comes to housing in terms to our population and where that puts us in terms of eligibility for different monies that come from state and federal pockets. They were really receptive and suggested some next steps of broadening that meeting to include a few other departments that work directly in housing. And it looks like that next meeting is coming up next week. And so we're working with city staff on that as well. And it's just a really exciting thing for McMinnville to be addressing housing problems, not so in such a reactionary and immediate way, but to be able to pull that lens back a little bit and have a more long-term approach. So I really, again, thank this space for creating that connection. And thank you so much to Kelly for shouting out in this space that we should do that. And here we are. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Sometimes it takes a shout, right? Are there questions for Councillor Drabkin? Abhishek.
Thank you, Commissioner. More of a comment, and I think I've mentioned this before, but I would love to have follow-up with both Councillor Drabkin and Councillors Drabkin and Menke to maybe talk about some potential synergies between the work that you're doing and the Workforce Housing Consortium in Newburgh. There's a lot of folks trying to figure all of this sort of thing out, and because of proximity to Portland, Newburgh finds themselves in a similar situation that McMinnville likely does in terms of assigned rurality when it comes to accessing some funds that could help, right? So I think the more heads we put into it, the greater amount of thought we're able to capture. And so I would love an opportunity to follow up with y'all and just make sure that we're kind of sharing and supporting one another.
Yeah, it's the community block funds that we're trying to go after right now that we're excluded. The county's excluded because they're under 200,000 in any city under 50, but there are some incidences of cities that can get outside of that, and that's what we're looking at. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Wyden's office is looking at a bill that he's sponsoring and working on that is too early in the draft form, but some other assistance that may be coming down the road.
Yeah, and that community development block grant, they're doing a training, a webinar. If y'all haven't seen that, there's a webcast series that is becoming available after February 8th, and they're running through, Business Oregon is specifically running through some of the requirements and specificities around, there's actually 4 sub-programs within this next biennium's grant program. So I'll be learning more and happy to share what I learn. And so thank you for that clarity, Mayor, as well.
Yeah, that would be great. We also have a couple specific projects where we have some at-risk affordable housing that we're looking to preserve and see how we can best support our nonprofit housing partners in retaining these pieces of land that are currently built out and are affordable housing in the city of McMinnville and are at risk. But that would be great. We love working collaboratively, and we've done a little bit as cities in the past working collaboratively over housing initiatives. It'd be great to get the ball rolling on that again. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just have one more comment, and then I promise I'll stop interjecting. But one of the reasons I'd like to combine the two conversations is because there are two very intersecting yet unique and robust conversations moving forward. And one speaks about a need for housing more related to homelessness and affordability. One speaks about a need for housing related to workforce development. And there are intersections of those conversations and different opportunities for support, funding, and engagement for each. And I think that they should intersect more than they do.
And to make a robust community, you've got to be working on both of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I assume, so my question then, Abhisha, you always can interject anytime, right? That's the point of this. I did want to remind you that Oregon Housing Community Services has a separate funding pool for renovating, purchasing, helping with co-oping or creating cooperative for trailer parks. And I assume that you all know about that too.
Yes, and they have to make that purchase within about 2 weeks. I think it's either 10 days or 2 weeks. So the residents have to agree to purchase, access the funds, and make the purchase within 2 weeks of that. So but yes, and we've been inviting Oregon Housing and Community Services into those meetings as well. And we're certainly trying.
USDA is also going to be part of this too, isn't it? The meeting next week.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your whole question.
Sorry, the USDA is also going to be part of the meeting.
Yeah, USDA and HUD. We're certainly trying to not replicate conversations. So doing things exactly like what Abhisha is talking about and trying to get the right people at the right tables at the right times. And we want to plug in where we should.
Right, and then okay, so thank you. I'm glad that you're on it. I do know that so Jimmy Jones at Willamette Valley Community Action Agency, they also through Oregon Housing Community Services purchased. So rather than cooperatizing, they purchased with OHCS money a trailer park in Falls City and are slowly renovating it and upgrading all the facilities there too. So if you haven't talked to Jimmy about that, he's awesome. I mean, Alexander knows all about it, but just make sure, I don't want to leave things hanging out there. All right, other questions for Councilor Drabkin? All right, thank you. And we'll move on to Councilor Menke. Tell us about YCAT or whatever else the community wants to know about.
a font of information here. Well, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the COVID-19 rental release statistics from YCAP. Total funding distributed in the rental assistance for COVID-19 impacted households to the tune of $1,726,168 this last funding period. Funding was distributed, checks made directly to landlords of Yamhill County rental properties. Funding included state and federal CVRRP dollars, as well as funding from OHA. Providence and the city of Dundee dedicated to Dundee residents. At any rate, number of persons assisted was 1,270, number of households assisted 482, and the average house size was 2.6 persons. And I could probably go through and give you the amounts for all of the cities, but you don't necessarily need to know all that. Moving along, just so you're aware, YCAP successfully expended all CRF funds across all programs by the 2020 deadline. So that's good news. So they spent all the money, good for them. YCAP's been notified. Additional funding for rent relief is in the recent federal package that will be coming to the OHCS. The amount and timing of that being released in allocations to the community action agencies has not yet been announced. Their teams are prepared to continue to deliver it. There are critical conversations, and Alexandra spent a lot of time on this at the last board meeting. There's been critical conversations that have been happening across the CAPO, the YCAP network, about a proposed statute changes from OHCS during this legislative session. Are you aware of that, Casey? YCAP has participated in all of them and will continue to do so. OHCS did not discuss, collaborate, or notify any CAA about their intent to do this until December 29th, 20. This proposed statute could change its significant and is a significant concern to Yamhill County and YCAP, as the proposed changes would dismantle the current allocations of funding for safety, net housing and housing services without appropriate planning or information. The board discussed with the ED on this topic will need to be ongoing for further details are provided. What they're going to do is be setting up allocation funding on a competitive basis, which seems to me like maybe it would benefit the larger cities more than it's going to benefit smaller counties like Yamhill. That's one interpretation from it. There's a letter that went out from our MEDP director that goes into this in depth. So just kind of be aware of it. It's definitely not probably a good thing for Yamhill County. I can go on, but I'm sure other people need to talk. So that's what I can hit you with today. I've got 7 pages here, but I don't think you want to hear all of it.
That sounds good. Thank you for that update. Are there other questions for Councilor Menke? She put a lot of information out there, so.
Yes, I did, and I apologize, but like I say, 7 pages. I got to condense it down a little bit.
Yeah, and to laypersonerize the stuff about Oregon Housing Community Services, centralizing funding at Oregon Housing Community Services is a really good way for communities to lose control over how their dollars are spent in ways that are unique to their community, which is one of the really the biggest challenges. Is that in Oregon we do a lot of decentralization. We say, here's a program, and you do the work out in your small community, and we trust you to do this work that meets this goal. And if we can't trust communities to do that and rather have it all centralized at Oregon Housing Community Services, then I think we're losing a lot there, including the community's ability to make its own decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's a significant issue.
Yeah.
As does obviously Alexandria. So be aware of it, and if there's some way you can support things for YCAP, it's a good idea.
Well, and so important is the fact that some of those monies are being used to work with other grants, so we're getting multiple return on that seed money that can be utilized. And so that's really important, that we lose those funding sources, then we're not being able to do the match that would be necessary to drive so many other programs.
Scott's absolutely correct on that. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And I have information from Alexandra at YCAP, and I'll be sure to just forward all of it to all of you so that you have kind of a clear sense of what the proposed changes are at Oregon Housing Community Services and how that would affect local community action partnerships. Especially right now, they're doing so much work in our community that the idea of them losing funding for specific staff members there to do work outside of that funding stream, like rental assistance, it would really be devastating to our community.
I do want to make it clear that Alexandria feels very strongly that they can, compete well in these situations, but she feels like, it shouldn't be necessary to do. It's better for the Yamhill County to decide how their money's going to be spent.
Right, that's a good clarification. Thank you. Great, thank you. If there are no more questions for now, I'm going to move on to Joya Goodrum, mostly because Abisha has said that she loves following up, the cleanup batter behind Joya.
You know what? I will take Abisha on my team as a cleanup batter any day. Thank you. She's awesome. Okay, first of all, before we go anywhere else, I need to do a shout out to the city groundskeeping staff. They were here today around the chamber building and it looks gorgeous. They cleaned up all of the bushes and everything else. So they are fabulous people and we appreciate how well they do keeping our grounds looking really beautiful over here. Just to let everybody know that as of today, as far as I can tell, there are 2011 bills that have been dropped at the legislature. And if anybody's interested in seeing any of those bills, they can go to legiscan.com, which I just discovered today. And it's a free service and you can read all the bills there. It's pretty cool. If you don't know how to use OLIS, which is the state system, but this collects them all together for you. So I kind of like that. Last week there was Oregon Business and Industry hosted a webinar. I sent this out to our membership, but I just thought I'd give you a couple of highlights on some of the things that they talked about. It was a comparison of where we are today with taxes and the current administration, where they're going. One of the things that they did mention is that we may see some late 2021 or early 2022 tax reform, which I thought was kind of interesting. We may see some changes in individual tax rates. So right now it's at 37%, and that was before the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, and it may go up to 39.5 on individual taxes. This is just like really high level. I'm not going to go into the weeds with this. More on the PPP. If you have gotten PPP, it could be deductible on your federal taxes as against taxable income, but it may or may not on your state taxes. So have a conversation with your accountant or your tax preparer. People that have S Corps and C Corps should discuss with their tax advisor how to best manage any PPP and IDO, because those are the ones that are really going to be impacted by that. There's new eligible expenses on PPP if you've had that in the past, and it is open until March 31st. So get in there and, do the application. Some states I mentioned may not allow deductibility of PPP. Paid sick leave and family leave credits were expanded with the new law at the end of 2020. And those are for businesses that did not take advantage of that in the past. So if you've got employees and you have not taken advantage of the paid sick leave and family leave credits, talk to your accountant or tax preparer about that. There's an employee tax retention credit as well, and that was also in the extension of the CARES Act, and it would allow qualifying businesses to claim the credit through June 2021. There was a conversation about the Oregon cat tax. That is due if you are a business and you have sales of $750,000 or more, you needed to register. And if it's over $1 million, you actually have a tax bill coming up. It is a 7-step process to figure this out. And your tax return is due April 15th. And so I thought that's important to know. The paid family leave and medical leave, paid family and medical leave is paid by 60% by employees and 40%. That's a statute in the state law. So that passed last year, and we'll be looking at paying that this year. And then in 2022, they will have hopefully accumulated enough money that people can actually use that for paid family leave. And it is 1% of wages up to $132,900. So anything above that, it's still 1%. And this I thought was really interesting. The marginal income tax rate for someone living and working in the city of Portland and Multnomah County for 2021 is 13.9% plus 0.1% wage tax. And in 2022, it will be 13.9% and 0.7% wage tax. So it's expensive to live in Multnomah County, which is why we love living in Yamhill County. Yay! We love it here. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
You beat me to it. Do we have questions for Joya? It was quite the overview. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. And then we've got Abhisha, clean up here. Or maybe we could think of it as an assist because the Trailblazers have been so exciting lately.
I love that. I'll take either clean up, assist. Like I said, I enjoy going after
home runs.
Home runs?
Yeah, or
Grand slam.
But we need a Major League Baseball team. Abhisha, work on that, please, in order for us to talk about home runs.
That's an inside joke, the baseball team thing. So thank you, Commissioner, for continuing to hold these forums, and everyone who participates for sharing everything that you do. And Joya actually summarized the recorded meeting that she referenced and sent that out to her business partners. What I appreciate about her doing that is it's kind of, she segments it. So by area of focus and how to really look at that and think of it. So our business partners who are maybe at a kind of a certain level or structure can focus on the things that impact them and not have to go through the hour-and-a-half presentation or whatever that recorded presentation. So I always appreciate your support to our business community, Joya. So a couple of things. I will reiterate that one of the things that is top of mind and top priority right now for our business partners is following the potential changes to federal and state taxation structure. So there has been quite a bit of activity already in that sphere, and there's a lot of speculation about what things might look like. Many of our business partners also tend to request an extension for filing their taxes, and so there's chatter about whether or not there might be reform that is then retroactive, and maybe whether it would be beneficial to delay filing your taxes this year. Of course, that's just kind of conjecture and speculation, but these are the conversations that our business partners are having, things that they're asking themselves. Another one that is on the radar right now is potential impacts to businesses related to Measure 110. So that is the decriminalization of possession of certain amounts of what used to be illegal substances or controlled substances, however that language is being expressed. We saw this same activity when marijuana was legalized in the state, in that businesses do have the ability to still maintain rules and policies and programs and processes that do not allow for possession of those sorts of substances on their properties or within their facilities. However, as you can imagine, they have to kind of reassess right? So what is our kind of HR booklet look like for our personnel? Is it clear about what we allow? And how does that read in relation to these changing regulation at a state level? So many of them obviously have to employ the support of external professionals to help them work through this language to ensure that they're adhering legally to what they need to do. And it creates a whole lot of work for our employers when it comes to sorting these things out. So, of course, just as citizens, we're all kind of watching to see how these new measures get expressed and how they get funded and how things actually roll out. From a business partner's perspective, it opens the door for a lot of potential confusion and frustration as they sort through what this means to their employees. Lastly, I do want to share that as all of you on this call and many who are listening might know, there are several organizations within our region and throughout the state that work to support our business partners. We have a couple of them on the call regularly with McMinnville Economic Development Partnership, the Chamber of Commerce, Strategic Economic Development Corporation. We also have partners like the Small Business Development Center and Oregon Manufacturers Extension Partnership, Willamette Workforce Partnership, who hosted all of those amazing grant programs for our businesses this year. So we have over the last several months been working to create a more structured alliance of some of these regional and statewide business partners. So today, in partnership, SEDCOR helped to host kind of an introductory webinar to introduce folks to the Mid-Willamette Valley Business and Resource Alliance. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I got that name correct. And what that is it is a more structured, more intentional partnership between Willamette Workforce Partnership, Oregon Manufacturers Extension Partnership, Strategic Economic Development Corporation, SEDCOR, and Willamette Workforce Partnership. We all kind of come together under the umbrella of the Shemeketa Center for Business and Industry. Many of us, of course, have offices within that building as well. And we are working to create a more streamlined approach to supporting our businesses from front to back, right? So we're looking at the entrepreneur startup business, those who are seeking help with potentially angel funding or kind of business development, all the way to, all the way through whatever their life cycle might look like, to even kind of creating succession planning. And those partners who work very closely with each other have the ability and capability to do all of those things. Now, certainly, we also continue to express these partnerships with our chamber partners and all of our other regional economic development folks. But we are trying to create more of this structure and clarity to our business partners on how they might access those resources, and also provide more of that support to other partners like our chamber to say, you can reach out to one of us within this group and we will be sure to connect you to that thread of support. So again, that is called the Mid-Willamette Valley Business and Resource Alliance, and you'll be hearing more about that. I believe we'll be doing more joint sort of presentations and offering forum discussions where our business partners can become engaged with all of us at one time instead of kind of that individual direct focus. More to come on that. And that's it for me today.
And Abisha, I apologize. I was intending to go to it and then was double booked. But I'm really excited about it because it's great to see a group of organizations represented by people that somebody can go to who doesn't know how to do entrepreneurship but has an idea, or who knows how to run a business but doesn't have the idea, or who wants to train their employees, or like all the way through to selling and transferring ownership, at the end of a career or a family's lifetime. And so that's super exciting to know that there's a group in the Valley who can help people with that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Commissioner. And and another, I think, point of this group is to help folks understand how we do provide that wraparound support and how we do work with one another. So if a business in McMinnville, for example, approaches me, a manufacturer, and they reach out because they've identified we might be a resource for them, one of the first things I do is ask them whether or not they're a chamber member. Right? So have you been working with your chamber and or with McMinnville Economic Development Partnership to ensure that they are connected to their most local resource? Then we generally do a business assessment and identify what their needs are, right? So if they say we're really struggling with workforce development, we connect them to Willamette Workforce Partnership and ensure that they're getting the benefits of all of that. If they say we're struggling with some internal processes in manufacturing, we connect them with Oregon Manufacturers Extension Partnership, and we can also provide direct support in some of those areas as well. And then as they continue to grow, they might say, we're an emerging business, we're still kind of young, and I'm trying to figure out how to be connected to other business owners. And we might connect them to the Small Business Development Center's accelerated program for small business owners. We might also connect them to the state so that they might be able to become a state supplier and learn how to secure contracts or do export, right? If they're interested in expanding their business for export. And so folks ask, well, how is it that you all work with each other? And it starts by knowing the resource that each individual organization is and provides, their area of focus and expertise, and then that open communication and open access that we provide each other to the resources that our organizations offer. And so when I call up one of my partners, I know if I call up Joya, for example, or if I call up Michael at OMEP and say, hey, I've got a business partner who's experiencing a problem, that they're going to give me all of their sincerest time and commitment and energy to solving that problem for that partner. And these are the ways that we already work together, but this alliance creates a little bit more focus and clarity. And also we're really trying to create more of a one-stop shop because our businesses are overwhelmed right now in ways that they haven't been before, right? Unprecedented times. We've heard it, the most overused, and pivot, right? The two most overused terms for our businesses. But this is just another expression of how we're trying to do that work more collaboratively and make it easier for our business partners.
Thank you. Oh yeah, Joya says innovation. Is that, yeah, innovation. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I'd say that struggling is probably the word that gets used most. But it's kind of a downer, so sorry about that. And it's not buzzwordy. Yeah. Abhisha, are there questions from the rest of the roundtable for you? I mean, you might not know, but. Okay, well, thank you very much. I do have some updates, especially about vaccine distribution. And Mayor Hill, set the stage for me. But I must confess that I'm technically on the Mid-Willamette Area Committee on Transit or Transportation. And so I need to actually start getting those emails because I didn't know I had a meeting this week. But it's good. I haven't missed it yet. It's very great. And I've sworn to be the annoying person who talks about the importance of cycling and for bicycle safety. So that's going to be my role, is to be that annoying person who speaks about the important thing.
3:30 Thursday evening.
It's, I live in a world where 3:30 is the afternoon. Sorry.
For us retirees, it's whatever you want.
Totally. Okay, so vaccines. But first of all, this is all good news, right? So the good news in Yamhill County is that our case counts have decreased dramatically over the past 2 weeks, really following a similar trend across most of the state. There are some areas that remain stubbornly high and aren't falling in case counts, but here in Yamhill County, we are seeing a real solid downward trend. That puts us in a position where we, the Oregon Health Authority gives us a little, what they call their warning week, that we will likely by next week be moving from extreme risk level to high risk level. So Joya, take note, because that's an important thing for, right. It is not, however, a guarantee. It's simply a reflection that the OHA says for the past 2 weeks, you've been making progress and reducing your case counts, and it appears you're going to be making it to that cutoff level. So, that's a very encouraging thing, and it's no guarantee. Mayor Hill.
And I just wanted to let it be known that Linda and myself have been, Thursday, we're going to be having a direct conversation with the governor as mayors again. And that happened initially when COVID came into play. And for 5 weeks, we had twice a week meetings while she was working on strategic and policy. I'm getting a sense that we're at that time where now she's coming back out to the mayors and going to kind of float some ideas. That is Thursday at 10 o'clock. And typically a week after that, that's when we hear some big news. So just to let you know that. And Casey, you may have that opportunity to be a part of it. It may not be only mayors, it may be county commissioners also.
Mayor, I do have a little bit of insight into it, and that it's it was in response to the OMA, the Oregon Mayors Association letter that was in part drafted by our own mayor of Dayton, who is the president, or is she the chair?
She's board chair.
There's board chair for the Oregon Mayors Association, so Mayor Witoski. So I did hear about that. It is primarily governor to mayors as opposed to county commissioners, which is good because we're good at getting in the way. You need to have that conversation with her. But I do look forward to hearing kind of the results and the movement forward on it. So vaccines, though, but before we go on to vaccines, so good news, it looks like we're going to be moving down in risk levels, which is really, really good for businesses, gyms, restaurants, bars, tasting rooms, a lot of different venues that really can have some level of being reopened again. And I will keep you all posted for sure on that, but you'll probably hear too. The sad news is that when we saw really high case counts in November and December, one thing that the Oregon Health Authority always reminded us is that hospitalizations and people in our communities dying are the lagging, indicator there. And we've been consistently in Yamhill County had one or two people whose deaths were reported each day over the past few days. And so I just want to put this out there to their families that I am mourning with you. My heart is with you. And I am so sorry for you. We have some folks who are older, who are in long-term care facilities who've died, and then some folks who have contracted the virus in the community and are living independently and have died. And it is really hard. And at the same time, I'm seeing every day that the sun is coming back. And that gives me a lot of hope. And so I want to put my thoughts out there to folks is that there have been a lot of deaths in our community, a lot of people who we all know and love. We have a community member on our little river island who died recently. And these are our neighbors and our friends, even though it's hard to see them when they have died because of the COVID restrictions, right? So at some point, what I'm hoping is that when we really know that when we have enough vaccinations and we see that this is a thing that's behind us, I hope that as a community, we can take the time to really mourn together. It's been hard to mourn in the moment when we have businesses that are struggling and children that need to be in school. Like the list goes on and on. But I hope we can take that opportunity. And so I will be with you to take that opportunity. The good news is that we have a lot of vaccines continuing to come into our community, a lot more doses. This week we have 1,100 doses that are going to the educators, childcare professionals, and staff. So while there's about 35, am I getting this right? There's about 2,600 people in Yamhill County who are in that category of phase 1B, group 1. We'll just go through the alphabet and numbers together to get people through this. And so we're making a significant dent in our educator group, but we also still are getting more doses in every week for folks who are still phase 1A eligible. So those are people who are medically fragile and at home, long-term care facilities, or their caregivers are a lot of the people who still have not received a vaccine but might want it. As we get closer to February 8th, which it's February 2nd right now, February 8th is when the first age bracketed group of people is eligible. And so that's folks who are 80 and older, who are living independently, aren't medically fragile, aren't in a long-term care facility. We may not have doses available for them, but that's when we can start getting them scheduled for appointments, or that's when we can start doing appointments. What we're doing in Yamhill County, which it turns out not everybody is doing, is that public health has communicated with every primary care provider in the county and has arranged for them to call the people in each of the age bracketed groups, so 80 and above, and then 75 to 80, 70 to 75, on down we go every 2 weeks. So they're going to be calling their primary care providers. The primary care providers are going to actually be calling their patients, and they will set up an appointment on the phone with them for the, the next few days. At the same time, they are going to inquire about whether they have the transportation to get there, because that's an important component of it, right? Is that you don't know if the person's going to be able to get there. We have a couple different options in the county, and the primary care provider is going to be working with them on that. They will also at the same time make them an appointment for their booster shot, which will be between 24 and 48 days later. That's the window that OHA has agreed is the safe window for that booster shot. And at the same time, I think there was a comment from Remy that 63% of MAC firefighters have been vaccinated so far. So yes, one of the reasons why we're still getting doses in for phase 1A individuals is that there's still folks who haven't taken advantage of it yet, but they will continue to have vaccines available to them. One thing that the county's been doing is having the fairgrounds be open as a mass vaccination site in cooperation with Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, the Medical Reserve Corps of Yamhill County, community emergency response team members who are volunteers in the case of an emergency, and Virginia Garcia Memorial Healthcare Center. So it's quite the group of people who are all there working to make sure that the vaccinations go really quickly and safely. And apparently it's amazing. I don't know. I haven't been there. I haven't been fortunate enough to get a shot, but the folks who have are just in high praise of their events. I think that's it on the vaccination front. It's hopeful. We aren't getting as many as we possibly could. Yamhill County now, with that teamwork, that team effort, can vaccinate 5,000 people per week. But we're only getting 1,100 doses in for that 5,000 person capacity. So I continue to push OHA and the governor's office to get us more. And at some point they'll get sick of me, but they haven't yet. So we'll see. Joya, you had a question.
You mentioned the fairgrounds, and if you're done, I can wait until you're done. I just wanted to update you on something that I know about the fairgrounds.
Perfect. So the fairgrounds is where we've been primarily doing large-scale vaccinations. Some folks have been able to come into Yamhill County Public Health Facility on a small scale. But what we've started doing, in fact, this last weekend, there was an event available in Newburgh for Newburgh educators. So the goal, when we have enough vaccines for multiple vaccination sites, is to have one in the West Valley, one in the McMinnville area, and one in the Newburgh area. Because it's really, if you can't get to the place to get your vaccine, you can't get the vaccine. So we can go to the people who have the challenges with accessing it. Joya.
Thank you. So the Oregon State Chamber of Commerce, Oregon Business and Industry, and a third organization collected funds for wildfire support. And the county fairgrounds through the chamber did an application, and we're going to get some money for our fairgrounds of $2,500. It's not a lot of money, but it's still something for all of the work that they did to help the folks that were displaced because of the wildfires, and to help them pay some of the costs that they reimburse some of the costs that they incurred. So I wanted to let you know that I'm waiting for that check to come so I can deliver it to the fairgrounds.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Joya. Are there any last questions? I realize that I have a 2 o'clock and it's, after 2, but oops. Thank you all for joining us again today. And out in the community, remember, these people all are working for you every day. Reach out to them if you need something, and we'll get it done. So thank you, and be safe out there.